What's up, everybody? Charlie Marlow here. Let's get right to it. How to buy your first rental property, or how I bought my first rental property and how you can do the same. Now, just being honest, this is not a property that when you buy it, you're going to be able to rent it out immediately. This is about thinking forward. This is what I did back in 2012 because I knew I always wanted to get into the rental property business. But I first wanted to buy a property for myself to live in because I was tired of renting and wasting that money, or so I thought, and not building up any equity. But I made sure when I bought my first property, it would be one that I could rent out successfully in the future. So this was 2012, and I bought a small 946 square foot, 2-bed, 1-bath condo in Brentwood, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. And going around this particular condo complex where I wanted to live, looking at different floor plans, I was always thinking about not just the present, but the future, knowing I wanted to eventually rent this out. So what would be a good floor plan to rent out? How much would you get for your rent moving forward? And so there are some different floor plans. There was a townhome floor plan that I really liked, but I thought to myself, the second bedroom in the townhome floor plan was not nearly as big as the first. So I made sure I bought a first floor condo where the bedrooms were of equal size, knowing down the road, if you wanted to rent it out to two people, they're much more likely, especially that second person, doesn't want to be cheated with the much smaller second bedroom. You also have to know about the owner splits or an owner cap, a rental owner split, which this condo complex does have. It's a 50-50 rental owner split. You have to know, basically, is there a waiting list there? Can you rent in this particular complex? There are some places where you can't rent out your properties. So you have to make sure, first and foremost, that you can rent it out. Then you have to know about that rental owner split. Is there a waiting list? Will it take forever? Will you get high rents? Is this a good area that not only you want to live in, but in the future is going to continue to be a good area, and you can rent it out successfully for years and years and years? So another thing, by the way, that I did at the time, so I'm about 30 years old, I had waited to buy a property because I was bouncing around different jobs through my 20s, got to a point where I was here in St. Louis, and then once I got a contract from work where I knew I was going to be here for a while, I finally went out and bought a property because, again, I was just tired of wasting my money away in rent. But I also had a buddy at the time that I knew could move into that second bedroom. I'm single at the time, had a girlfriend, but not married or anything like that. So that was a great way to also split up the mortgage cost. I was charging my buddy, which was a good deal, by the way, $500 per month, just flat $500 to rent that second bedroom. And when you think about what your costs are at the time, I think my mortgage was somewhere in the 700s. I can't remember exactly. The HOA was right there somewhere south of $200, around $200-ish dollars. If you're adding another 100 or so, taxes and insurance, and your total amount is going to be right there around $1,000. I was able to have half of that paid by my buddy who lived in the second bedroom for 2.5 years, paying $500 a month. And so what's that math right there? I'm not great at math, but that's what, 6,000, 12,000. 2.5 years, that's what, about $15,000 that he helped me pay off my mortgage and my expenses while he was renting out that second bedroom. Okay, so now let's talk about moving forward when we actually want to rent out this property. So I lived there happily for 4 years, 2012, 2016, around 2013, I meet my now wife. So I'm living there. She had a house at the time. Eventually, we both lived just for a little bit in this 2-bed, 1-bath condo, but knowing we're going to now get married and move on to a bigger place, an actual house. So in 2016, we go and we rent it out. And at first, I went out and found a renter on my own through social media and found really good renters for this particular property over the years. Now, I haven't had the greatest luck overall. I would say, if you're still watching right now, and look, we're focusing on buying your first rental property, but I did make a lot of mistakes, which I will get to more so on this channel, as we do pretty much solely investment property videos, but it is always good to obviously properly vet those people, get a security deposit, get all their information, have them fill out an application, and especially that security deposit, first month's rent. That's a great way that they can prove to you that they will be able to make the rental payments moving forward. You know, we're not all great judges of character. Probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to find the right renter. But if you're very trusting, which I used to be and I'm not anymore, I'm telling you, you could have 10 tenants. 9 of them could be fantastic, but the one that's bad will cause you a lot of stress in your life. So 2016, we start renting it out. And we ended up renting this property out for about 5 years, anywhere from about $1,200 upwards to $1,400. I think sometimes it was $1,300, sometimes it was $1,350. I believe over the course of the 5 years, we had 3 different tenants. They were all very good tenants, and you also had COVID there. So at one time, a guy was going to stay for a year, then COVID hits and he stays a little longer, as he has a house that is being built and it took a little longer. But the overall point of this video, and we're going to do more where we tell you about how to expand your rental property business and how to scale it up. But this is for your first rental property. And I understand if you're watching this video right now and you're saying, well, Charlie, I already have a house that I live in by myself or with my family, whatever it is. I'm looking to buy that first rental property that I'm not going to live in. And I get that. We're going to break that down in the future. But I do think this is good for younger people who want to be in the rental property business long term, but they haven't yet bought their first property, even for themselves. It's always good to think forward for that first property you live in. Make sure it's something you can rent down the road. That's the perfect way. It's the perfect way to get into this business. You live there for a while, you end up buying whatever it is, a larger house, or you move with your family, and then that property that you already lived in, you know about it. Basically, you know the condo complex, you know how much it costs, you know the mortgage, you know the HOA if it's a condo, you know the taxes and insurance, you know basically how much it's going to cost to keep up with expenses. Although, let's be real, you're always going to treat your own property a whole lot better than your tenant will, even though there are some good tenants out there. But you have a very good lay of the land from living there for a while to what's it going to be like when you actually rent that property right there. And also, so we ended up selling this property early 2022. This was a condo we bought for $132,000. I bought it for. That was 11 years ago. Able to sell it for $185,000. So a nice markup, obviously, with everything that's going on with the economy and real estate prices going up and up and up and up over the last several years, which was really pushed into gear during COVID. And so sold this rental property about a year or so ago. And honestly, I kind of regret the fact that I sold this property. At the time, I was wanting to sell a property or two. I didn't know that moving forward, I would have sold more of some different properties. And in the long run, this was one of my favorite properties, and it was the most expensive property because, again, I lived there at first. A lot of the other rental properties that we've bought in the future are much smaller, anywhere from, let's say, a $35,000 purchase price up to $90,000, $100,000 purchase price at the time. And again, we bought most of these in 2017, 18, 19, and 20, and haven't bought anything since September of 2020. And the reason for that is that the prices went up and up and up. Now, if I knew in 2020 that the prices were still going to go up, probably would have bought some more. But you also had everything with the uncertainty of COVID at the time. You had some renters that weren't paying. You had the crazy eviction moratorium going on. You didn't know what was going to happen there. And then the property values kept going up and up and up through 2021, through 2022. Probably peaked, I would say, April, May 2022. And now I think I would purchase more properties, but I feel like the interest rates are so high. And again, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, But I would buy some properties now. I think you're getting okay deals. You're still towards the top of the market, but I feel like it's come down enough where, okay, this thing isn't immediately just going to tank, but now you have interest rates that are hell. I mean, talking about a line of credit that I started to kind of scale up my rental property business, and I believe that line of credit started at, 3-4 years ago, I think it was either 4.25% or 4.5%. Well, that line of credit is now at 8.5%. And you start to do the math on what you need to make for a cap rate, what you need to clear in cash flow on an 8.5% loan there for a down payment I'm talking about. Then, of course, you'd have to pay the mortgage or the commercial loan on that property. So again, we'll get into more of that as we move forward. My goal is to do about one video per week on the rental property world. It's something I'm very interested in. For 4 years or so, I only bought, and now for the last year or so, I have sold several. So I now feel like I have some information on both sides of that. And also just doing your taxes after your first year of many sales, and can discuss basically capital gains and depreciation and how that all works in terms of your taxes moving forward. So not going to make this video super long. We're going to wrap it up. But just in conclusion here, if you want to get into the rental property business, I get it if you want to buy that property right now and start renting it out. That's great. But if you want to look forward, like I did, buy that first property for yourself that you're going to live with. Doesn't matter if it's with a roommate that helps you pay some of that rent. Maybe it's your girlfriend, maybe it's your wife, whatever it is. But then as you move on, maybe you have a family and your family grows, you need a bigger place to go, whether it's a condo, whether it's a house. All of a sudden that place you lived in for many years, that's your first rental property. I think that's a great way to get into the rental property business. Buy your property right now for yourself, knowing you're going to rent it out in the future. Make sure you can rent it out. Make sure it's going to get good rents moving forward. Make sure it's in a good neighborhood. Make sure you know your rental splits with the owner rental splits. Hey, make sure you get to know the people at the HOA. They can help you out. They can be your friends. Sometimes you have ornery HOAs. I've had pretty good experience overall with HOAs, but they're not all created equal, and some of them can make your life very, very stressful. So there you go. A good way to buy your first rental property. Buy it for yourself to live in, to rent out in the future. That's how I did it back in 2012. We grew it to a nice rental property business at the peak. Had 18 properties, have sold 7 in the last year and a half or so, and plan on buying some more moving forward, hopefully, if these interest rates ever go down. All right, well, thank you if you're still watching. I appreciate it. Comment, like, and subscribe. This channel is going to be almost 100% devoted to rental property videos and what's going on in the banking industry and interest rates and all that. And if you got any value from this video, once again, please comment, like, subscribe, and share the show on whichever social media that you prefer, or tell your friends about it. All right? Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Charlie Marlow. We'll see you later. Get into that rental property business. I've loved getting into it. I've made a ton of mistakes. I'll tell you about all of them moving forward. But buy that first rental property for yourself to live in, and then rent it out down the road. All right, see you later.